Hello and welcome back, Squirrel Nation. I hope you're all having an amazing day. Today's video, we are focusing on team composition. And to dive in, the purpose of a team composition is to increase your team's implied odds of winning. Okay, so what do I mean by that? What I mean is when we initially load into a game, and whether that be drafting or just hero select screen, then the implied odds are 50-50. We have a 50% chance of winning and a 50% chance of losing. Okay, so the interesting thing about a team sport or just any game is as soon as it begins, you are increasing or decreasing your implied odds. Okay, so this is where team composition comes into play. Okay, a good team composition increases the implied odds of your team winning. Okay, and let me give you an example. If your team decides to select 5 support heroes, your implied odds are very much reduced, right? Instead of 50-50, you now probably have a 20% chance of winning and an 80% chance of losing the game, okay? And this is what makes team comps interesting but very complex. It's not as easy as just saying, oh, we have one Dark Slayer laner, we have one Dragon laner, we have a jungler, right? It's not as easy as just following the meta for the team comp. That's why I really want to drill into everybody's head that when you are selecting, when you're in hero select or you're in draft, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to increase your chance of winning the game, okay? So let me give a real quick example. If you're going to play Dark Slayer lane and the enemy team chooses Zuka, okay? So you know that you're going to lane against Zuka. Then how do you increase your chance of winning? Okay, well, you think about Zuka's kit. He's a burst hero, right? He has pretty solid wave clear. He duels quite well against other melee champions, right? But then you think about how can you counter that? How can you exploit his weakness? Okay, well, Marja is a great counter to a Zuka. Why? Because Zuka relies on burst. Marja can just simply avoid his burst with her ultimate while doing good damage to him at the same time. Another reason Marja you would expect to win lane is because she can just outrange Zuka. Zuka should never be able to hit a Marja unless the Marja is getting greedy in her position, okay? Or wants the Zuka to fight her and she knows that she's going to win, okay? So that is a very simple example of changing your implied odds, okay? So if the enemy team chooses a Zuka and you choose a Marja, you have increased your team's implied odds. Okay, so is it as simple as every lane countering the other lane? No. So if your lane is, let's say your team of 5 selects every counter to the enemy team, right? So every lane wins. Your mid laner counters the enemy mid laner. Your dragon laner counters the enemy dragon laner. Does that mean you're going to win? No, because there's more complexity to Arena of Valor. So what I'm about to cover is that added complexity to Arena of Valor and why it complicates team compositions. I want to begin here. This is my personal model of Arena of Valor is I think there are 3 core activities that occur. There's farming, managing pressure, and controlling information. Okay, so why do these matter? Okay, well, we're talking about increasing your odds of winning. So I think that if you increase your odds of doing well in these 3 activities, those things are going to lead to a win. Let's begin with farming. The goal of farming is to acquire more gold and experience than the enemy team. So how can you do that? Well, there's a few ways. One, you can be more efficient at farming. You can last hit where the enemy doesn't last hit. You can steal jungle when the enemy doesn't steal jungle. And you can roam to get kills or assists. Okay? So that's how you can optimize your farming. But at the same time, you can prevent the enemy from also farming, okay? So if you prevent the enemy from last hitting, you're also helping yourself build a gold lead, okay? So farming is not just what you do, but it's also how you affect the enemy laner's ability to farm as well. Managing pressure. The goal of managing pressure is to force the enemies to take predictable actions and give up information about their team. Okay, so pressure is the concept of things that the enemy team has to respond to, okay? So if you clear your minion wave and you push your team's friendly minion wave into the enemy tower, you're creating pressure. Why? because one, the enemy team is losing golden experience if they're not around when those minions die. Two, you're creating pressure because the enemy tower is losing health and is in threat of dying, so that also creates pressure. So pressure, simply put, are things that the enemy team have to respond to. So how do you build pressure? You manage your minion waves, you kill towers, and you set up advantageous fights. Killing towers affects the enemy because it eliminates their safe places. So if your team has killed all the enemy team's tier 1 towers, it makes it much harder for the enemy team to farm near the river. Because now when they're near the river, they have no place to run if your team comes to kill them. Or the place that they have to run is very far away, okay? So setting up advantageous fights is the concept of implied odds applies here too, okay? So we've been talking about implied odds to winning the game, but there's also implied odds of winning the team fight, okay? So when you evaluate a team fight, you have to always be asking yourself, what's the chance that my team can win this fight, okay? And the things that affect that are man advantage, location, and positions, okay? So what I mean by man advantage is if your team is going into a fight and you have 3 friendlies and there's only 1 enemy, your implied odds are very high. There's a 95% chance that you're going to kill that enemy because there's 3 of you and only 1 of them, right? So how do you build a man advantage? Well, you can do it in 2 key ways. One is you get kills, because when enemies are dead, they can't participate in a fight. The second way is you out-rotate the enemy team. If your team rotates, let's say mid, and you have 3 people mid for a gank, and the enemies have not rotated, then they only have their 1 mid laner there. That's how you create a 3v1 via a rotation. The other thing to set up advantageous fights is positioning and location. So these kind of tie together, but they're kind of different. So positioning is the location of enemies during the fight, okay? So if the enemy, let's say Violet, is in the front line and all your team can target her, well, that's really bad position, and it increases your team's chance of winning the fight because you are all going to be able to focus Violet and kill her really quickly, which is going to harm the enemy team's chance of winning that fight. Location is thinking about the environment and how it plays to your team's strengths, okay? So Dragon Pit, Darkslayer Pit, the mid lane, these are common places that set up good or bad team fights, right? So if you imagine the Dragon Pit, say your team is killing the dragon and all of you decide to clump up inside the Dragon Pit, the dragon's AoEing all of you, and then the enemy team comes in with a bunch of AoE damage. You have lost that fight just because of very bad location, like a very poor choice of fight location, okay? So there's other places around the map that are poor fight locations. We're not going to talk about them now. You get the point. Controlling information. The purpose of controlling information is to make it easier for your team to farm and harder for the enemy team to farm, okay? So how is controlling information and pressure different? That's kind of something that I think can be confusing. So pressure, the example I like to give is your team is sieging a high ground tower and there's 4 of you there and the minion wave is just hitting the high ground tower and you're going to kill it, right? That's pressure. The enemies have to respond or they're going to lose their high ground tower, okay? Control is more like when you've been defending your base, let's say you're pushed into your base and you're defending your high ground towers, and all of a sudden all the enemies are missing, okay? You can't see any of them, and in your gut, you know, they're killing Darkslayer, they're killing the dragon right now, you just know it, but you can't do anything about it. That's control, okay? That fear that you feel, that inability to go check what they're doing, that is because the enemy team has extremely strong map control. Okay, so what are the things that I associate with control? Well, they are hiding what you're doing and at the same time discovering what the enemy's doing. Okay, so by actions, I mean actions, what you're doing, killing Darkslayer, killing Spirit Sentinel, that type of thing. Location, where are you now, right? Where is your team and where is the enemy's team players right now? Rotations is where you will be. So if you know the enemy team is Dragon and you start to see them move up, you know that they are rotating towards mid, okay? And then monster and buff spawn timers are just when buffs will respawn, right? So if we know that red and blue buff respawn every minute and 30 seconds. So the thing is, if you kill it at, let's say, 45 seconds, you know that it will respawn at 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Now, if the enemy team didn't see it die, then they don't know exactly when it's going to respawn. To them, it could be 220, it could be 225, right? They're not really sure. And in that window of uncertainty, your team can secure that buff very easily and safely. So that is control. Now that we've discussed what the 3 core activities are, I can explain my view of what a hero's role is. So to me, a role is defined by the amount of time a hero dedicates to the various core activities. And as an example, a support player spends almost no time farming, but they spend a lot of time looking for vision on the enemy, looking for enemy rotations, setting up good team fights, right? Those are the things you expect out of support players. So essentially what you're saying is that for a hero or for a player to fill the support role, I want them on a hero that is not going to be farming, but is going to be roaming around the map, looking for enemy activity, and trying to set up good team fights. On the other hand, from a split pusher, what you're looking for is somebody who is very efficient at farming, somebody who can build a lot of pressure and threaten enemy objectives. And what I mean by that is an omen, when an omen is pushing your tower with a full minion wave, it is very scary because that omen can melt that tower very quickly, okay? On the other hand, do you want your Omen running around the map trying to set up team fights? No, because Omen is not a great team fighter. He's a great duelist, but not a great team fighter. So you don't really want him doing the same things you want your support doing. So that's how I define roles. Okay, well, what makes a hero good at a certain role? And we already kind of started to discuss this. What makes a hero good at a certain role is how they fill out on these 8 hero attributes. Okay, so this is something that I use to evaluate the type of role that a hero fits into, okay? Let's go through them real quick and then we can kind of discuss. Mobility, what I mean by that is essentially movement speed, right? How fast can a hero rotate? How can they kite? Can they chase kills, right? Managing engagements is the ability a hero has to engage or disengage safely. So you can have heroes like Batman, like Wukong, like Quillen, who can go invisible. That lets them set up very good engagements because basically they can take a fight when they want to, and they can get out and not take a fight when they don't want to, okay? So on the other hand, you have dashes. So heroes who can go over walls and stuff, they can escape well, they can get out. You have Marja, who can go invulnerable, and she can just get out, right? So that's what I mean by managing engagements. Vision mechanics, I'm thinking Elsu, I'm thinking Lindis. They have wards, they have traps. Lindis gives you that ability to see invisible heroes. And then you have the damage types. This is something very important because damage type really affects what role a hero fits into, okay? All of these things affect, but I would say damage type really affects what a hero can be, okay? Heroes who do well in lane are heroes who can clear waves quickly, okay? Heroes who do good in the jungle are heroes who can clear the jungle quickly. So are they the same thing? No, okay? So mages are a good example. A mage has very strong AoE, like let's think about Natalia or Jinnar, okay? Natalia can clear a wave with 2 skills, right? She just throws out, bam, wave dead, okay? But on the other hand, if you look at the marksman, like let's say a Lindis, okay, or yeah, Lindis, right? Lindis only has single target damage. Her single target damage is high, right? But she can only kill one thing at a time. So if Lindis tries to clear a wave and Natalia tries to clear a wave, Natalia is going to clear a wave quicker, okay? But now we go into the jungle. If you're trying to kill the blue buff, the red buff, one of the little monsters, then who's going to win? Lindis definitely is going to win, because although Natalia has strong burst damage, her cooldowns, she has to wait on her cooldowns, and her auto attack is not that strong, whereas Lindis is just chipping away consistently with strong auto attacks, okay? So a hero's damage type strongly affects the role that they fit in, okay? Same thing, we talked about threatening objectives in Omen. Omen has very good sustain damage. Does Omen have huge burst? No. Does he have great AoE? No. He has good single target damage, and it's sustained damage. It's his auto attacks. He's just chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, right? That's what makes him good 1v1, and that's what makes him good at objectives, dragons, dark slayers, towers, okay? Tankiness, this is something you're looking for in your support, right? You want them to be able to mitigate damage. Damage mitigation can come in a variety of ways. It could be invulnerability, it could be iframes, it could be just reducing the amount of damage you take. And then there's effective health pool. I used effective health pool because some heroes have shield, right? So Zenial has shield that changes your effective health because it adds to how much damage the enemy team needs to do to you to kill you. Crowd control is self-explained. Sustain, these are your heals, right? Pura, I would say, is a sustained goddess. If a team has a Pura, they're going to have a very large amount of sustain. And number 8 is a very, very important one when it comes to team comps, and that is scaling. How well a hero scales. And let me give you an example. Rourke versus Violet, okay? If you have a Rourke in your jungle or you have a Violet in your jungle, they are very different things. Rourke is extremely strong early game, mid game, and he falls off late game, okay? Whereas Violet is weak early game, mid game starting to get there, late game becomes a monster who's just one-shotting all your carries, okay? So that's scaling. And scaling can be done in 2 ways. You can scale off of items, or you can scale off of levels, okay? Heroes who scale well off a level are going to do good in the jungle because junglers will always have a level advantage. But now with the changes, junglers are not going to have the highest gold in the game, or it's a lot harder for them to have the highest gold unless they're getting kills. So if you're looking at scaling, you want a hero who scales on level to be in the jungle. So anyways, you can see how these attributes tie into what roles a hero can fill. To close this video out, let's discuss why everything we discussed matters, okay? So, quick summary, we said the purpose of a team comp is to increase your implied odds of winning the game, and then we said it's a complex thing, it's not as easy as choosing counter heroes, okay? So then we went into the 3 core activities, and the reason that those matter are if you win those activities, you are very likely to win the game. So if you select a team composition that is going to do good at farming, good at building pressure, and good at controlling information, you have a very high expectation of winning the game. Okay, so why does that matter? Well, certain roles perform certain activities better. So you want to have a balance on your team of different roles, okay? And to give you an example, if you have a bunch of heroes who are very good at farming, but they're not good at team fighting, then you have a strength, which is farm, 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 but at the same time, you have a very strong weakness, which is if the enemies roam around as a 5-stack, it's going to be very hard for you to do anything because you don't want to fight them. And if you don't have the ability to disengage, then they're just simply going to pick you off one by one. Okay? So hopefully, I know that's a very extreme example, but hopefully that's kind of making some things click in your head as to how everything we talked about built into the complexity that we discussed at the very beginning of the video. So I want to kind of simplify things at the end, and that is I'm going to do by talking about planning a team composition. So I think the thing that everybody can focus on that can make these things easy is establish a win condition and the roles necessary to achieve your desired win condition. Okay, so what that means is let's use the pig raising. And for those of you who are not familiar with pig raising, it's a concept of funneling tons of golden experience onto one player who is a late game hyper carry. Okay, so I think it was Li Lu I first saw doing this in Arena of Valor, but he played on Tel'Anis and Violet, and he played them jungle. And what he would do is he will jungle, and he will also go and soak lane experience, okay? And what that does is it gives him a huge gold and experience lead over the enemy team, and then we know that Tel'Anis and Violet are just beasts when they get fed, okay? So that is the team's win condition. The team's win condition, to be very explicit, is get Violet, get Tel'Anis fed, get the pig fed, and then just let the pig dominate the rest of the game. Okay, so now we have our high-level strategy. We have our team composition's goal. Get the pig fed. So how do we do that? What roles do we need to do that? Okay, well, roles we need. We need a hyper carry. We need a Tel'Anis. We need a Violet. What activities does that hyper carry need to be really good at? Farming. That the quicker they can farm, the safer they can farm, the better, okay? And what roles do we want to surround that carry with? Well, we want extra support, right? So pig raising tends to have 2 supports in the team composition. Why? Because you need to make sure that your pig is safe at all times. If your pig gets killed, your team composition is in trouble, okay? And same time, you want 2 supports because supports don't need a high level of farm, right? They're not super item dependent. They bring a lot of utility and tankiness, but they don't need to get that huge amount of gold, which means you can give it off to your pig without really hurting your team. So anyways, hopefully this is pointing out when you choose a win condition, and to simplify everything, I want you all to think about it this way: is choose a team composition, choose your goal, your win condition, and then think of the roles that will fit into that win condition, right? And then when you know the roles that you need, you just need to select the hero that can achieve that role, okay? And at the same time, you're countering what the enemy is doing, okay? So to close the video, and I hope I didn't blow everybody's mind, I'm trying some new things, some new editing techniques, some new explanations here, so just please, if I did a poor job, let me know and I will do another video. I'll dive into different things. But anyways, let me know in the comments. I really want the feedback. To close, this is my model. When I go into draft or I go into hero select, what is in my mind is, first, what is my team going to do? And I am the player who I will fill at the end. So I let my team select what they want to do. I can't control them, okay? Sometimes they have good team comp, sometimes they don't. They select the team. They select 4 out of our 5, and then I look at it. And I say, out of these heroes, what can our win condition be? So let's give an example that's common. You have 2 marksmen, okay? Your team selects 1 jungle marksman, 1 laning marksman, and then let's say your team selects an assassin and Darkslayer, like Zuka, and your mid is, what's a common one? Liliana, okay? Liliana mid, right? So these are the type of things you'll see in solo queue. So then what I'm doing is I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, power curve scaling wise, my marksmen need to make it to late game. Liliana is, she's good throughout the game, but she's still strong late game, right? She doesn't fall off. Zuka is, assassins in general tend to fall off more towards the late game. Okay, so power curve wise, my team's pretty good, okay? What role do we need? My team needs a support. Why do they need a support? Because all 4 of the other heroes are gold dependent, so I need to choose somebody who is not gold dependent so that my team can get as much gold as possible. Okay, so I know I need somebody not gold dependent. I know that they're going to be focusing on farming, heavily focusing on farming. Zuka may roam around if I'm lucky. So I'm looking for a hero where I can help them farm, and I can basically just peel and delay and stall the game until late game. So to me, a great selection in that case is Teamy, okay? If the enemy team does get on my marksman, I have my revive, so it gives them that second life. I give extra gold via my passive, okay? And I have great peel, and a Teamy doesn't ever need to take a fight unless he wants to because he has so much mobility, so much CC. So that, to me, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to take a Teamy because my team's win condition is make it to late game. If we make it to late game, our marksmen are going to pop off, our Liliana's going to pop off, so I just need to stall the game and keep them alive and help them farm. Teamy, done. Bam. So anyways, hopefully that was clear to everybody. Once again, if I didn't make that very clear, let me know in the comments. I will clarify. I'll be answering all questions. So anyways, as always, take care, and I will catch you all later.